Ed, just wondering what you've been seeing in terms of the government shutdown, what that means with TSA agents not being paid, what that means with air traffic controllers not being paid. Are you seeing problems in terms of your passengers being able to get to the planes on time or your planes being able to take off?
Hi, Becky. Certainly we're seeing longer lines in the airports. Yesterday, actually, in Atlanta, we had some very long lines. 90-minute waits at the security queues, which is substantially longer than anticipated. But broadly, I think it's sporadic. Most of our airports are reporting no material change in the line waits. TSA actually published a stat yesterday that they had about a 7% unscheduled absence rate, which compares to their normal rate of 3%. So it puts it in context. I think it's, Houston and Miami reported over the weekend that they had some issues. Atlanta had some long lines in the morning. But over the course of the day, that actually settled out. And this morning, we're anticipating being just fine in Atlanta. Delta's stepping in. We're providing a lot of people into the queues, helping take any of the non-security functions off of the TSA's hands to the extent we can. So, I think it's hopefully going to be relatively smooth traveling for our customers. Are you frustrated because you're paying taxes? I mean, you're paying taxes that are supposed to be paying for these costs. The government is not in turn turning around and paying that. What are you saying to government right now? Well, we in our published comments today, we encourage our elected officials to do their very best to resolve these differences as quickly as possible. We're not taking sides on the debate, but we need to get the business moving again. One of the other issues to us is that we're seeing a reduction in revenues in the month of January. Not huge, but about $25 million due to the fact that government contractors and some government officials are not traveling the way they would anticipate because of the shutdown. We're also having some certification delays in getting our new aircraft brought onto our operating certificate because the FAA has shut down some of the inspector functions.
Hey, Ed, in terms of just modeling out how long this lasts and therefore what it could mean to your business, if you sat in a war room, and I don't know if you have one, on this particular issue of the government shutdown, what does it look like? Meaning if this lasts multiple weeks, both in terms of the federal employees that you're talking about, the TSA issue, which may not be, 90 minutes is something, but I don't know what that grows to over time if this goes on for multiple weeks. And then actually, if you have people, whether they're business travelers or retail consumer travelers who say, you know what, actually, I don't want to put up with the line. I'm not going to book. People who are planning on booking stuff in a couple weeks from now, just saying, you know what, I'm either going to drive or I'm not going to do the trip.
Well, the revenue impact I mentioned, it's about a $25 million monthly rate. That's we would anticipate continuing in our business. We're going to work closely with TSA. We're talking to the administrator. We're seeing what we can do to continue to offshed line weights and whatnot. But I think from our perspective, it's going to be a manageable situation. Hopefully it doesn't last too much longer.
And is it manageable if this goes on for months?
Well, we'll see, Andrew.
Ed, one last question here. You mentioned certification issues. You're supposed to begin flying the A220 at the end of this month. Do you still believe that's going to happen?
I hope so. I hope so. We'll see in the coming days if the resolutions. You're asking me to speculate what's going to happen in Washington, which is a thankless task. But if we get the FAA certification back on schedule in the next week, we will. If not, we'll delay it until the FAA inspectors come back to work.
And then one last question for you. There is a growing theme, if you will, or discussion amongst analysts and investors. And that is whether or not the best days of growth for the airline stocks and the airline industry, if they've already happened. In other words, questioning where that next leg of growth is going to come from. What do you say to that concern?
I don't think so. One of the things about 2018 that I was most impressed by is that we delivered a $5.1 billion profit for the total year, despite the fact that fuel prices were up 30%. The last time fuel prices were up 30% for Delta, that was in 2011, our earnings came down 25%. This past year, they were down 3%. So I think that we've built a very different model, a model of resiliency, and I think with stable fuel cost as well as stable non-fuel cost, we're positioned for a very nice 2019.